Narendra Taneja, India's leading energy expert. Thank you so much for rejoining us, Narendra. The outlook for India, obviously, we've seen uncertainty with uncertain China demand outlook has been projected as one of the reasons that the oil markets are struggling at the moment. But yet India continues to be growing. We saw the second quarter this year reporting close to 7%. Outlook for Indian energy demand holding through the next quarter?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you look at demand for petroleum products across India from north to south, east to west, is very strong. In fact, if you look at the global landscape, India is one of the very few bright spots where the demand for petroleum products is growing and growing steadily, which is, of course, is fantastic. But at the same time, low oil prices, since we import roughly 88% of total requirement of oil. So low oil prices is always a good news. But at the same time, the data we are getting from China or the perspectives we are getting from China are not very comforting. India would not like to see China kind of economically imploding or getting in some kind of difficult situation, because that's not good for us. We would like to see a stable China, especially economically. And but we understand at the same time we are looking at the market very carefully. And the way we see it, they're basically two dilemmas. On the one hand, OPEC wants to make sure that there is steady growth in demand for crude oil world over. They want to see it, and they want to work towards it. But at the same time, they want oil prices to be back in the region of $80 to $90 per barrel. So how things are going to shape up, India is keeping very close eye. But our own sense is that probably oil may slip, Brent, especially since in India we benchmark via Brent. So we think that probably it will slip to $70 per barrel before it starts climbing up a bit. But India's in a very comfortable, rather very space, because 70 is a good price, 75 is okay, $80 per barrel Brent is something India can deal with. So, but the important thing for India is that Middle East, especially the oil exporting Middle East, they remain politically and economically stable. We would not like to see India can't afford any kind of economic turmoil due to low oil prices in Saudi Arabia or UAE or across the Middle East. That's not good news for us, because our economy is quite dependent, rather interdependent. So we would like to see stable oil prices. Even $80 per barrel is okay. $70 is always welcome, but we know that it won't stay there, $70 per barrel for a long time. So keeping a close eye, but demand for petroleum products, crude oil, India is growing. Overall sentiment is very positive. But when it comes to those sentiments about the economic India, the way India is looking today, let's say next quarter or 2025, very, very positive.
If you're OPEC plus, if you're looking at this, do you sort of think maybe this is a much bigger storm that they have control over, and this is really about the world adjusting to the change in the Fed's pricing on money with the cuts? It's a tipping point from a few years of tightening economic monetary policy to now one of easing, and just that adjustment is the shock, and we really need to get through that adjustment before knowing how to react, that this is beyond the impact or the control of managing the energy markets.
Well, a good question. You see, if you look at the history of oil prices since, let's say, 1970, I mean, we have seen these kind of values before. It's nothing new. I mean, I just spent 10 days in Europe attending several energy conferences. And when you look at the world from the global north, Europe, America, and all that, I mean, they paint a very different picture. The narratives they put on the table are very, very different. I mean, and people like me, we don't buy that narrative. I mean, like on energy transition, they say energy transition. Well, energy transition, very good. But the fact is 80% of global energy is still fossil fuel, and it's not going to change anytime soon. Even by 2050, fossil fuels would still be doing very strong globally. 50%, according to Western data. According to our data, about 57%. When we go by our own projection, a little over 60% in India, markets like India. So that's energy transition. Look at, for instance, renewables.
And does the lowering of interest rates by the Fed support the transition? Does it support fossil fuels? Is there a winner in that?
Well, my sense is that, it indirectly supports because fossil fuels will be the gainer, the beneficiary. Because when it comes to renewable, how does renewable benefit? If you look at the coal data world over, all solar power development the last 5 years have happened in the developed world and in China and to some extent India. But the rest of, let's say, 6 billion people, are not yet affected. They're out of it. So how do we look at it? So that's what I'm saying, that, renewable fossil fuels, especially oil and gas, for majority of countries around the world will continue to play a very important role. Or even, just let me allow to add one line. Even, for instance, when oil is not used for transportation, let's say by 2050, not so much as for instance today. Even then, it will be a very important, a component of the whole thing of the economy in terms of plastic, in terms of petrochemicals, even in artificial intelligence, or for instance, the renewable modes of transport is all plastic. So where is that going to come from? So my own sense is that I'm very optimistic, and I think large economies like India, they should not be demonizing oil. China should not be demonizing, because oil will continue to be very important for economy like India for a long time to come. Though we are giving major push to renewables. But just quick comment on OPEC. OPEC is passing through some turbulence and tough times, and OPEC needs to modernize the way they look at the world. The days when OPEC could dictate or OPEC could look upon itself as some kind of lord, that era is over. They need to
But that
talk more
Lord
upon
now
what.
also includes your good friends in Russia. This is not just an OPEC world, this is an OPEC plus world.
Well, our West is also a good friend. The US is also a good friend. Russia is a good friend. China is a good friend. I mean, we have our own universe, so we don't have any enemy. So, point here is that, the Russia is important. We are buying roughly 40% of total requirement of oil from Russia. Why? Economics. No politics, no love. It's pure economics. Tomorrow, if US can provide that at that rate as Russia is providing, we'll go to Russia.
But
If they provide even more.
the point is that OPEC plus now includes Russia, and so it's not just OPEC. So their ability to influence is greater now than it was.
Well, the point is, we have seen the kind of struggle that OPEC headquarters is going for. It's not as simple as that. Russia may be part of it. They may be OPEC plus, look like stronger, but at the same time, now they're trying to do what they're trying to do, and they find at the same time, look, I mean, their own influence is rather limited. So when it comes to the overall global economy, the way it is today, and a very fragmented world, where we have got, practically two worlds. World is divided in two parts, and we have also got a world where basically even oil, the way it's consumed, the way prices are fixed, the way oil prices are negotiated, and all. It's a new world has emerged, led by China, led by Iran, led by Russia, and so on and so forth. Big consumers like India on the other side. So I think it's a more fragmented world. So we can't really look at the world the same way as we used to, let's say, before February 2022.
Narendra, just picking up on that, of course, from India's perspective, we saw your prime minister on a visit recently, both to Russia over the summer and also recently to Ukraine. First visit since this conflict has started. Your thoughts on these two major conflicts that the world is living with, that they're contained. From India's perspective, are they contained? There's obviously the occasional concern bubbles up that they could spread and become a major catastrophe for everybody, not only for the poor people that are underneath it. But your thoughts from an India perspective: A, why did Modi go to Ukraine? B, can India play a role in resolving any of these things? And from a general perspective, are these contained now? They will not escalate.
Well, first, Europe and Ukraine. I mean, our sense is that probably is kind of already contained. Whatever happens is going to happen within that limited geography. Might include, Russia, but would be happening within that. What we might see in time to come, because Russia has its own stand and Europe and the NATO has its own stand. I think even if, for instance, there is some kind of, light at the end of the tunnel, is going to be a frozen war, in the sense that, they may not be fighting, but there will be military tension. And on the one hand, Europe will be preparing, and Russia, of course, would also be preparing. So I think kind of like sometimes something like what happened in Cyprus or what happened in Korea. that kind of situation where eventually they might agree, all right, whatever you have, especially in terms of Crimea and all that, you keep, and the rest is what it is. We don't know, but I think, but it's a long drawn thing. I think it's what we're going to see in time to come in Ukraine is a frozen war. We don't see any solution as yet. The reason our prime minister traveled to Ukraine was to convey to Ukraine and to the people there that, look, we wish you well, we are with you. You are a democracy, you are a sovereign country, and we understand all that. At the same time, Russia is a close friend, and so is Ukraine. So it's not that we are with this country or that country. That was a message, very powerful message to convey, and at the same time to convey the sympathy. There are lots of people in India who sympathize with Ukraine. There are many who are, kind of look upon, buy more into what Russia has to say. We are a democracy, so government has to respond to it. But coming to the Middle East, I mean, my own sense is that, probably like Iran's response, we all expected, after the assassination of, Hamas leader in Tehran, northern Tehran, probably Iran is going to react in a very violent manner and all that. That didn't happen. So it shows that there is a kind of more maturity, or probably Iran does want to get into it, a full-fledged war. And we also know that Russia, which is a major supporter of Iran, probably doesn't want Iran or situation to escalate. They want to focus on Ukraine. China has invested heavily in Iran, and China really looks upon Iran as a major market, major supplier of oil. They also don't want to see Iran getting into any kind of escalated war situation. So that means that Iran has to take its own call, considering what two major supporters, their views totally different. And I think my own sense is Iran's economy is not that strong, and the fact that they have not responded means that they are also looking for some kind of solution. So I think the situation like that will continue. What happens in terms of between Palestinians and Israel, that is the solution. But the major question is that many people ask, if there is a Palestinian state tomorrow to which Israel agree to, or the Arabs agree to, would that be a kind of state more like the UAE, or would that be more like Afghanistan? We don't know. So there are many questions being asked. But at the moment, the way I'm looking at it, I don't really see any light at the end of the tunnel. We might see the both sides may get tired at the same time, sit across the table, but would that lead to any solution? Would, for instance, the new occupant in the White House would deliver any magic solution? I personally don't think it's anything of that happening. And the both parties will get tired. They sit across the table, might try to talk, might try to convey they want peace, but unless and until there is a Palestinian state where the people are satisfied that, like, it is our state, we want to develop our own future this way and that way, and that happening, is that kind of going to be reality soon? That doesn't look like a possibility, at least when I look at the horizon today. So on Middle East will continue to be the way it has been, or the continue the way it is, and that's not a good news for economies like India.